Hey, what's going on, guys? Miniman Preparedness. So I didn't really intend on doing a video today, but Command 11, which we know I love Command 11, they have some really good intel and they're constantly pushing information out. Well, just a short while ago, they put out a 14-page document that is titled Threats and Incidents since January 2025. So this chart here, they break down on these 14 pages all the major incidences, primarily in the continental U.S. There are a couple major incidences in other countries, such as the electrical issue in Spain and Portugal. That's on here, but pretty much everything else is incidents from cyber attacks, bomb threats, shootings, intel gathering, probing type deals at hospitals and other critical infrastructure. So I've been looking through this report and I wanted to go over a little bit of it with you because as most of you all know, I stay pretty in tune with a lot of this information. I had no idea that there was this much. But what's really going to get you is what has happened just this month. Just this month in April. It is astonishing. Let's break it down. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but I wanted to hit on some important ones and just kind of some general information here. So I've went through here. So as of April, just April, we've had 50 incidences this month. 10 of those incidences were in schools. Now that is not individual schools. That is 10 incidences at schools in like a school or school district. So there may be 3, 5, or 10 schools that is listed as one incident. And then 13 separate incidences at hospitals, whether it be probing, cyber attacks, and different things like that. So let's go ahead and hit on some of this information with the schools. You know, I made that video talking about some of the bomb threats and stuff, threats of mass violence they were having at schools. Well, apparently I hadn't seen all of them. It's hard to try to keep track of all of this stuff just being one person. So let's see here. The 29th of this month, they have here, it's an unknown type of attack. So they were unable to gather what type of attack it was, but in St. John's, Florida, an unknown threat was received. 3 schools were locked down. Again, on the 29th, and we're going to hear the 29th a lot. Melrose, Florida, unknown threat received. Schools locked down. Unknown number of schools on that one. Let's see. The 29th. The next I'll let you know when we're out of the 29th. So I don't have to keep saying that. Let's see. Hillsdale County, is that Michigan? Reading community schools closed after receiving bomb threat. Unknown number of schools. 3 schools going to lockdown in Venice County, Florida. Unknown reason. 3 schools closed without reason. Caution was given as a reason. Lexington, Kentucky. Bomb threat. South Sarasota County, Florida. 3 schools locked down due to bomb threat. Posted on Facebook. Bomb threat, Houston, Texas. Bel Air High School received a bomb threat via text message. A swatting incident occurred at Brevard County, Florida. Brevard County schools locked down. So it says county schools, plural, but it doesn't state how many. I don't know if that's all schools in the county or what. Let's see here. And that one right there, that was kind of strange. That was the majority of like the schools there. So like I put in that video, I can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before, but there was a lot going on with the schools. And as we can see, it was, you know, kind of spread out throughout the United States, which was, like I said in that video, it's pretty interesting that, you know, schools get bomb threats. They get, you know, threats of mass violence. A lot of the times, you know, it's a student. They don't want to, you know, be in school that day, or there's a big test going on that happens sometimes in universities. You know, they'll pull the fire alarm or call in a bomb threat because they want that test or something postponed. Sometimes it's just a student who's been suspended and they're angry. But for all of these different school districts and different schools throughout the United States, you know, and going over the reports since January, that has not been an overwhelming trend. Throughout all of these other months since the beginning of the year, that hasn't happened. And it's kind of strange how all of that happened really within a day or 2 day period. I've got a couple different things here. Okay, so this was pretty interesting. So on the 29th, there was a cyber attack on a hospital in Columbus, Ohio. Cyber attack on Ohio State Medical Center that brought down the networks. That was on the 29th, Ohio State. Infrastructure attack, hospital, Columbus, Ohio. Ohio State, again, University Medical Center, water supply systems and backups failed. It's pretty interesting. So one was on the 28th, and then a whole separate type of incident on the 29th. One with the water infrastructure and then one with the networking. Thought that was pretty interesting. And you'll have to bear with me. There's a lot of different pages here, and I've marked things and made notes. I know there's one here. Might be in this stack. Here we go. So I did a video on this. So this was put out on, this occurred March 26th. The 2 Mexican nationals that I put had, believe it was 180,000 rounds of ammunition, 7.62 and 308. Well, I've watched some more information on that and looked around, and like I said, I'm not really familiar with the 308. You know, I hadn't served in the military, but apparently the 308 is used in belt-fed machine guns. I watched a really good video dealing with this information 1 or 2 days ago, Fieldcraft Survival. If you go over to their page, they give a pretty interesting perspective on, you know, a breakdown of these individuals. Apparently they flew from Mexico in to pick up this vehicle that they were going to purchase. Then they went and got this ammunition, and then, you know, as I stated, they were stopped for the traffic infractions and all that mess. And that's when the 180,000 rounds were found. They stated they were heading to Pueblo, Colorado, which I believe was like a straight shot up Highway 25 to Colorado Springs. And I stated that there had been some issues, I believe, in Colorado Springs with the cartel. Well, apparently there's a big, you know, a lot going on with the cartels in Pueblo. I didn't know that, but I do now. Apparently that's a pretty big area for them. And I also didn't know this, that the area of Pueblo, Colorado is home to the 4th Infantry, the 16th Special Forces Group, Air Wing, Northcom HQ headquarters in the area, and the NSA HQ headquarters is also in that area. And, you know, like I said, I believe it was 43 miles straight shot up Highway 25 is Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I stated that they have the population in between that 100,000 to 500,000 population density. They're at the very top of that, I believe, around 494 to 497, just shy of the 500,000. And they also have that Tier 1 Trauma Center hospital located there. But I thought that information was pretty interesting, that they flew in, picked up that vehicle, went picked up that ammo, supposedly. They're not saying if it was picked up at one location or picked up at multiple spots. That information has not been released. Of course, this is still pending investigation, so they're not going to let all the information out right now, especially with it still being under investigation. But I also didn't know it, but in that area is, I believe it's the federal maximum security prison, I believe, where they're holding, I think it's El Chapo or one of those cartel leaders is being held right in that general area also. So that's pretty interesting. You know, I was thinking, you know, they were either purchasing the ammo to send it down south or to disperse it around to, you know, other groups here in the U.S. And like I've stated, we do know that the cartel has been frenzied a little bit with some terrorist groups. Of course, the cartel has also been marked as terrorist groups, but I'm talking more of like the Islamic terrorist groups, not necessarily the cartel. You know, who knows? They could have been getting that ammunition for them, or they could have been getting it for themselves to disperse out around the U.S., or some sort of a hit at that prison, which I don't know about that. Or they could have been getting it sent back down south. You know, I don't know. I'm sure somebody knows within our government, but they're not speaking about that right now. But if you know, there's a lot more in this report. There's a lot of probing at hospitals going on. I made a video about one of those incidences not too long ago. Here it is right here. April 11th, Hospital Cincinnati, Ohio at Tri-Health Systems. 6 men dressed in black took up positions inside the hospital, asked for access to restricted areas. All refused to present identification. That's when security and other staff members approached them. Vehicle license plate they were able to obtain that. They gave that to law enforcement. And let's see here. They have another marker here, conducting training on mock hospitals at a former U.S. camp. I don't know much about that, so I'll have to look into that, but that's marked under this. You know, but there's a lot of probing going on at hospitals and a lot of cyber attacks. Also, I believe it was the other day. Again, I'm sorry for all of the page. Okay, here we go. Both of these were on the 27th, and both of them were in Baltimore, Maryland. Bomb detonated near Home Depot and a Wendy's. I read about that one. It appeared to be, I believe it was some sort of possibly a pipe bomb or something like that. I believe they said it had BBs or possibly ball bearings. I think I saw in the report it said BBs though. And then there was a car explosion inside of a parking garage also the same day in Baltimore, Maryland. I didn't look through the report on one of these through this. It may be in here, it may not. I'll have to look. But there was also an explosion, and I can't remember the date. I believe it was in the past few days or week, and I can't remember what city or state it was in. But there was a IED type deal that was found at an intersection, and at the intersection was, I believe, a Catholic church that came from Christian Warrior. I hadn't looked at all that information yet, but what do we got here? 5-6 pages of things that occurred just within the ending, mid to the end of April. A lot going on here. It's really, excuse me, really strange. Really strange. And with all of this type of stuff going on, a lot of these, especially with the school stuff, like I said, a lot of that, it could be a student, but I seriously doubt that. It could be somebody just having fun, thinking it's funny to do that. But all over the U.S. and big school districts and several schools, that's a lot of scattered type of stuff. To me, that's more of like a probing type deal where they're calling it in. They're seeing how long it takes for the school to lock down. Is there anybody moving around outside of the school? What are the security procedures going on around the exterior of the building? Because obviously they're probably not inside of the school. So watching from afar, seeing what, if law enforcement, fire, EMS, EOD pulls up, who responds. How long does it take for them to clear the school and get the school the all clear and back open, back operational again? To me, some of these, seem to be quite interesting, and they seem to me like they could be, some sort of a probing operation. And some of them, like I said, a lot of this is all speculation and just my opinion. It's not fear-mongering, anything like that. This is legit information of things that have happened. You can go and look all this stuff up online on multiple different news sources. Command 11 is very reputable with their information. They're gathering and whatnot and putting it out. But I believe some of these are probing. And with a lot of this stuff going on at the schools and the hospitals, we know about the hospital attack information. Command 11 is supposed to put out that second briefing this week. They didn't give a day, so I'm just waiting on that. So as soon as that comes out, I will get you all a video. But like I've said in several of my past videos, situational awareness, please pay attention to your surroundings. Pay attention to the vehicles, how they're parked, where they're parked. If you're parked in the back of a parking lot and, a van or something pulls up right beside you and there's 200 other parking spaces all around, or if you're in a store and come back and there's one parked there and it wasn't there when you parked, and there's hundreds of spaces closer, but they're parked right beside you, pay attention to clothing. A lot of the country now, it's pretty warm. So there's not a need to wear, trench coats and heavy down type puffy jackets and huge bulky clothing, carrying large bags. If you see bulges, especially around the front of the waistband or the back of the waistband, that's indicative of a weapon. Pay attention to people's hands, pay attention to the eyes. Are they looking around? Does it look like they may be, communicating with somebody else who's there kind of with their eyes or hand signals? Pay attention to the places you go, to the vehicles, especially large events, gatherings, especially if it may be a church event or something, something to that effect, large outdoor events. Pay attention, utilize that situational awareness, continue with your prepping, food, water, personal protection, communications, medications, get some medical training. Even if you can't go anywhere, go online to some reputable companies on YouTube, like North American Rescue, Prep Medic. People in groups like that learn how to use a tourniquet, packing gauze, compression bandages, chest seals, how to deal with hypothermia, shock, broken bones, how to splint things. Stock up your home pharmacy with over-the-counter medications if you're on prescription meds. If you're able to get an extra order of that stuff, go ahead and get it. It's not going to hurt to have it. You'll end up using it anyways. So there's no reason not to have extra. And excuse me, I'm getting a little long-winded here. You know, extra medical supplies, have a way to purify water, pick up some knowledge, some books, you know, go online, print off some articles on that tell you how to purify water and first aid, you know, all these different things you could be doing. If you got a little bit of room, throw you some pots out there with some tomato plants, some pepper plants, some watermelons, something. Learn how to make bread, how to preserve food, stock up on bulk bags of rice and oats and you know, canned foods, non-perishables, you know, macaroni noodles and pasta sauce and all these different types of things. Get yourself prepared. You know, like I stated, nobody expects you to run out and spend lots of money, but you need to do this. These things aren't going to hurt you. They're going to help you in the long run, and if something does happen, you'll have the stuff. And hopefully, if nothing does happen, you got a well-stocked house with supplies, food, and medications, and over-the-counter meds and medical supplies that you're going to use anyways, eventually, at some point in time. So if you can afford to do it, don't go in debt doing it. But if you can afford to do it, go ahead and start doing that stuff. Don't wait till tomorrow. Do it today. Start today. If you're able to get your hands, you know, if you got a little bit of cash in the bank, go ahead and pull out a tad bit and you know, have it somewhere locked up, safe and secure, hidden at your house or something, so you have a little bit of cash on hand in case our banking system gets hit by a cyber attack, you know, or the credit card systems, tax systems or whatever. That way you have some cash. But I implore you to do these things, because the more people that are prepared for bad situations, the easier it will be for you, the easier it'll be for me and everybody else, because we won't have as much panic and people running around and people not prepared. The more people that are prepared, the easier it is for everybody. Okay? So go out and do that stuff. If you want to look this information up, if you have an X account, go over to Command 11. I think it might be pinned at the top right now, but it'll be marked if you go through there. They just dropped it earlier today. It'll be the threats and incidents chart since January 2025. If you have that account, go over and follow Command 11, and you can print this out and look for yourself. But with that, you all stay safe. Have a great day, and Minuteman out.